Here we go. Good evening and welcome to the May 3rd regular meeting of the Novi Board of Education. I'm going to request that Mr. Mena do a roll call vote this evening.
Trustee Cook. Here. Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hood.
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee O'Connor, I believe, is absent. Trustee Stevenson.
Here.
All right. Well, we welcome all of you with us. If you'd like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Terrific. Great. Thank you. First, we need approval of the agenda this evening. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll support.
Okay. It's been moved by Mrs. Stevenson and supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our student board member report. Dr. Weber.
Hi, yes. How are you? Just saw you.
Yeah.
What happened to the arm? That wasn't there when I saw you last.
Yeah, I took a fall in softball, so.
Like in the last 24 hours or so? Or?
Yeah, last night.
So, fall to stop a play, fall to...
Diving catch and my right fielder kind of fell on top of me.
Ouch. Did the ball get caught?
No. That was
Heck of a
fun.
story. Heck of a story.
I know.
So please, why don't you go ahead and take us through what's going on at our high school.
Introduce yourself
Thank
first,
you.
please.
All right, my name is Ireland Whalen. The senior honors night for the class of 2018 is happening on Wednesday, May 30th at 5:45 p.m. The Select Art Show opening will take place on Friday, May 4th at 6 p.m. in the Novi Civic Center. Rock the Box is on Friday, May 4th at 7 p.m. in the Black Box Theater. Prom is this Saturday, May 5th at 7 p.m. at the Rock Financial Showplace. The a cappella concert is on Tuesday, May 8th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. And the dancing choreography concert will take place Thursday, May 10th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. The commencement orientation will be on Monday, May 14th at 7:15 a.m. in the auditorium. And choir has a concert on Thursday, May 17th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium, as well as orchestra also has a concert on Monday, May 21st at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. And as always, athletics streaming is available at noviathletics.tv.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lots to do this coming month, right? With
Yeah, for
wrapping
sure.
up the senior year. Wonderful.
In Ireland, before you go, I know usually you stick around through the whole meeting, but maybe there's something else you need to go to tonight. You did a fantastic job yesterday with the You Matter presentation at the high school, where I know you put together this notion of people coming together and telling their stories about mental health and well-being, you sharing a little bit of your own, and getting people from around the district to do the same, as well as some spoken word and a dance program. Anyone who doubts for a second the future of our country because somehow they think the kids are different nowadays, I'll tell you they're different. They're better than we were. So thank you very much for that. It was a very powerful day yesterday, and I think this week I know you've been instrumental in You Matter.
Okay, thank you for coming and speaking as well.
You're welcome. Protect your other arm.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you for being here. All right. Next, we have our awards, recognitions, and presentations. Dr. Weber.
Yes, and I get to pass it over to Dr. Kinzer, who graduates from Michigan State University tomorrow morning with his doctorate in education.
Fabulous.
Well done.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce the Oakland County Support Person of the Year Award. First, an introduction to the award itself. The Oakland County Support Person of the Year Award, formerly the Betty Campion Award, was established in 1990 as a tribute to long-standing Oakland Schools and Walled Lake Board of Education member Betty Campion. It recognizes the contributions made by those in support positions throughout local schools in Oakland County. Candidates for this award must be employed in a support position in a local school district, transportation, maintenance, custodial, office personnel, food services, or professional support to teachers. The Oakland Schools Education Foundation will award 4 school support persons, one from each quadrant of Oakland County, with a $500 cash prize and framed certificate of recognition to applaud the integral role they play in the day-to-day operations of districts. So today, I'd like to now introduce Bob Stee and Linda Chan-Farah, who are going to introduce the Novi Oakland County Support Person of the Year.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Diane Hoskins, who was elected the Support Person of the Year. We're all here to honor Diane Hoskins for her dedication and work to the Novi School District. It has been an honor for me to be able to work alongside Diane for these many years. She is an amazing and she has an amazing and incredible work ethic. One of many of her responsibilities is student accounting. And we're a little more complex as far as adult and community ed, as far as student accounting, because we also have shared time services that we provide to 3 parochial schools in Walled Lake. So she's responsible to input and track 900 students in the 3 parochial schools, as well as input and track the 70-plus students that we have in our career prep high school, as well as input and track the 200 ESL adult students that we have. And beyond that, it's not, we don't have just one student recording system for the state of Michigan, we have 2. So she's responsible to put this into 2 different systems each year. She is amazing, and she's a perfectionist. And some people would sit back, or I would sit back and say, a perfectionist, well, sometimes that's a fault. Not with Diane. Diane is a perfectionist down to the T. The Oakland accountants that come in and check her work each time as far as student accounting, love Diane because she hardly ever, if she makes one mistake, it drives her nuts for weeks and weeks and weeks. So she is unbelievable. She is the kindest person that I've ever worked for, and I say for. She directs me a lot of times. She is the kindest person. She's kind to our staff. She's kind to our students. Students look up to her. They'll come and tell them all their own problems to her. They'll share all the time. She is just an incredible person, and not only for Novi schools. If you get to know Diane quite a bit, she is the most generous person in the community that I know. She shares her time and talent, and she's got many talents, with many, many people in helping them and organizations. So it's been a pleasure, Diane, and we love you in adult and community ed. And I'm going to turn it over to Linda Chenfira now. She has a few remarks.
I really can't top that. I just want to say a few things. One, Diane is the most forward-thinking person that I have met. Whenever I ask her a question, I say, Diane, do you think we can do this? She'll always say to me, well, no, I don't know anything about it. But the truth of the matter is, she does know about it, she's researched it, she's tested it, and she's come up with 3 ways to improve it. So I can honestly say Diane is a true asset to our program. She's the most innovative person that I know. I go to her when I have a puzzle, because she's awesome. And I have to say that if there's any person that I could have wished on my team, it is exactly someone like Diane. And the generosity in her heart is true to the kids, the adults, the community, and even to us within the office. So she's truly an awesome support person, but she's an awesome individual, and we are very blessed.
So this is very uncomfortable for me because the way I was raised, you do your job and you give it 100% all the time. So to me, I'm just doing my job. So I would like to thank the Board of Education, administration, Bob, Linda, everybody for this wonderful recognition. It's hard for me to take, but I take it. I am grateful that Novi supports our alternative ed and adult ed program. This program to me is amazing. I'm blessed to be part of a team of administrators, teachers, support staff that truly believe Every single student matters. Their success is important. Our program, that defines our program. So I'm grateful that it's still around, and I hope it's around for a long time. When I started working in Novi schools, I had no idea where my path would take me. I am so fortunate to have found a position that I can be so passionate about and watch these students who basically had nowhere else to go, came here, walk across that stage. So thank you very much. Keep us around.
In closing, I just want you to know that the selection was difficult because the competition was very strong. We had excellent nominations, but Diane rose to the top. And when we recognized her in community education, she was surprised and humble, but obviously we've made an excellent choice, so thank you very much.
Did she bring some people?
Yeah, I don't know, Diane, did you bring someone with you that you'd like to introduce? Because every good support person.
My role models, my father, Bob, and Mom Marie.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for supporting her to be our support person of the year. And so, and Diane, I had the pleasure of stopping by and getting a piece of cake because they had the huge cake the day that they presented her the award, and I got a really nice note from her afterwards that I just want to say it brought tears to my eyes because she clearly loves what she does, and she shared a story about one of the students that had come to her. So students come first, and that was really clear from what Diane had communicated to me. So I just want to say I think it was an excellent choice as well, and we are very thankful that you're a part of our district and part of our program. So.
And I'd like to say, Marie and Bob, to echo Bobby's point, you definitely raised a heck of a daughter with great manners as well. And when I got a 2-page thank you note for thanking us for thanking you, I mean, it was fantastic. However, what you said at the podium as far as being advocates and allies for each of our kids from birth till the end of it, we are one of the very few community school districts that still honors that trajectory. And we couldn't if it didn't have people like you. And in our lean times, when you helped us generate income to keep that afloat with our share time process, it wouldn't have happened without you. So thank you.
Thank you. Terrific. Next, this week is Staff Appreciation Week, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Rubber, and you're going to read that.
Sure. So Staff Appreciation Week we have coming up is next week and the first full week of May. And just as we just talked about, Diane, and as we have people, as I look out in our crowd here, and I see Ms. Forrester, who will be here in a moment. I see Principal Mikos and Principal Bedford here tonight. A community school district is nothing without the people who work in it and serve in it. And we really serve those very well-dressed kids that you'll see in a couple of minutes in the back here with us from DECA tonight. And it is an absolute pleasure and privilege, whether a secretary, a bus driver, food service, support staff, teachers, administrators, those around this board table, thank you to the kids for giving us this privilege to serve you. And our district is what it is, not only because of you and the students here, but the people who cherish the ability to serve you well. And we're very happy and proud of our staff in this district. And I know President Murphy has a declaration to read.
I do, but first I would like a motion to recommend. Our recommendation is on the bottom of that one page if someone would like to do that. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
I recommend that the Novi Board of Education, in an effort to express appreciation to our staff for their dedication and contribution to the success of Novi Community School District, proclaim May 7th to the 11th of 2018 as Staff Appreciation Week.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. I will call the question. I don't think there's any discussion on that. I think we can all agree that we appreciate our staff. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So I will read the proclamation for Staff Appreciation Week. Whereas America's greatest strength has always been an educated citizenry, and whereas the educated citizenry is directly attributable to our system of free and universal public education that provides an educational opportunity for all students, and whereas the foundation upon which that system of public school rests is most often the principal and teacher, and whereas the educational support staff provides the assistance necessary to encourage a positive school climate and environment for learning, and whereas the entire staff is challenged daily to reach out to every student regardless of ability, interest in learning, social or economic background, physical, mental, or emotional handicap, race, religion, creed, or ethnic origin, to provide the assistance and guidance necessary for full intellectual development, and whereas the work of the instructional staff and the educational support staff affects the future lives of all students, and whereas the total staff of the Novi Community School District deserves the deepest respect and admiration of the citizens of this community, now therefore be it resolved that the Novi Board of Education hereby proclaims the first week of May 20, 2018, Monday, May 7th through Friday, May 11th, as Staff Appreciation Week, for the purpose of providing public recognition and appreciation for the dedication and contributions of school personnel, not only to this community as a whole, but to each of us as individual citizens. We thank you, staff, for being a part of our district, from support persons all the way up to our, from our bus drivers, custodial staff, everybody that really plays such a great part in our district. We thank you, and next week will be a public appreciation for you. I know that there's several events planned for teachers throughout the district, and we hope that you take full advantage of those, and we'll be there to be honored at your district or at your school buildings. So if anybody else would like to say anything about our Staff Appreciation Week, I would certainly welcome that. We think I kind of covered it all, though.
I think you did.
Okay, terrific. We will move on then to our reports to the board. Dr. Weber.
Yes. The Novi Community School District has many opportunities for students to participate in showcases, conferences, and competitions, expanding their knowledge beyond the classroom and bringing relevance to the curriculum. This evening, we present our DECA group, including their teacher, for recognition of her leadership role and her students for recognition of their significant achievements on behalf of the Novi Community School District during the 2017-18 school year. So, Ms. Jody Forster, if you could please take the podium. Novi High School IB business and management teacher and DECA sponsor will present to the board for recognition students whose success in business-related competitions this year has been outstanding. So I'd like to go ahead. Please take the podium, and I'm sure you're super proud.
I am very proud.
Introduce some great kids to us tonight. Thank you.
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for your continued support. We couldn't be here without you. And Mr. Smith, it's nice to see you too. Mr. Smith has been a huge supporter of my IB business program. He's mentored many of my students with their internal assessment. So I appreciate Robert and Aditya, my two co-presidents. So I appreciate you for your continued support. So we're just here to celebrate tonight. We're here to celebrate the tenacity and work ethic of our entire Novi DECA chapter. Standing beside me are our DECA officers, and they are really the reason why our membership does so well. So I just want to thank them for their their tireless hours of helping our students prepare themselves for competition. You have people in this audience that have prepared 90-page papers, practice sets. You have people creating thousands of questions, working on role plays with all of the membership over holiday breaks, at night, early in the morning. So it's really the people that stand next to me, that stand beside me, that have really helped our program move forward. So I'm very, very proud of them. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. Clift and Mr. Armstrong, Ms. Harris, and Mr. Schoaf for helping me advise this group that is becoming larger and larger. However, my students will attest that with me, it's never about the quantity, it's about the quality of our membership and the ability to exceed personal expectations and react with grace. And that is really what the goals for our organization are. With that, again, I do want to thank our DECA officers, and with us are many of our membership. So I would like to, before I introduce our presidents, I would like to congratulate Zoe Ling. Zoe Zoe Ling has been nominated as a DECA state officer, so she is going to leave her position as a local Novi officer to help with the DECA state program. So that's very exciting for Zoe. And right now, I'd like to introduce you to my co-presidents. We have Robert Shu and Aditya Chitta. Thank you again.
Thank you all for having us here. We're excited to say that Novi DECA has had another phenomenal year. We started the season off with 151 members, and 115 of those members qualified for the State Career Development Conference. And of those 115, 52 qualified for the International Career Development Conference, which is 14 more than last year. Also, this year, Novi DECA has had 28 of those 52 place in the top 20 in their event in the world, and 15 place in the top 10 in their event in the world. We'd like to specially recognize Sanadia Singh, who placed 3rd in marketing communications. Saranya Nastala, who placed 2nd in the apparel and accessories event. And the team of Katie Shia and Andrew Liu, who placed 1st in the world in the entrepreneurship team decision-making event.
Another group we'd like to recognize today are our 4-year members. Joining DECA as a freshman and really sticking with this organization throughout 4 years is definitely not any easy task. So we'd like to congratulate Shilpi Shah and Andrew Liu for sticking with us and believing in the chapter from day one.
Good.
However, none of these accomplishments that Robert and I have just mentioned would have been possible without the help of a few people. First off, we'd like to thank Novi Community School Districts, the Board of Education, Principal Carter, and all of our other administration for their constant support in our organization. Next, we'd like to thank Mr. Armstrong, Mrs. Clift, Mrs. Harris, and Mr. Schoaf for helping making sure everything runs smoothly and really allowing our members to focus on competing and really focusing on their own success. We'd like to thank the Abhi Shah Foundation for a successful year of partnership, and we hope to see this partnership grow over these next few years. And last, but certainly not least, we'd like to thank the woman behind all of our success and the growth of this chapter, Mrs. Jody Forrester. 4 years ago, I was another clueless freshman just scratching the surface in the business world, and Mrs. Forrester really took me in with open arms into this wonderful organization, and since then has really allowed me to, or helped me to grow as an individual and as a leader. Ms. Forrester, the skills that you've given me are invaluable, and I cannot thank you enough for that, so thank you. So this is actually my 4th and final time probably standing here before you guys. So the last thing I want to leave everyone off with is that, like I said, 4 years ago, I was just another clueless freshman walking in through the doors of Novi High School. But DECA has really provided me a home over these past few years. It has given me the communication skills, the leadership skills, and really helped me develop a passion for business and really find my career aspirations. And I am so excited to see where this chapter goes over these next few years and what heights it reaches. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, I guess you're all sitting down. I guess we could make comments. We don't have any questions, apparently, that we need answered by them. We might. Does anybody have questions that we want Jody to go back to the podium, or any of the students? No? I would open up to the board if you have comments that you'd like to make about our DECA chapter, our huge DECA chapter, and these fine-looking young people. Mr. Smith?
I'd like to compliment you guys. I had a chance, as Ms. Forrester mentioned, to sit in her classroom and listen to Robert's presentation. Robert's project was with our business here in Novi, and the previous summer I had both Robert and Aditya working as interns, and this was before last year when I sat where you guys are sitting. I I think for a Teacher of the Year presentation, I saw these guys all come in their sport coats, and I was clueless. And I listened to the presentations that you guys gave last year, and the outgoing president, I can't remember his name, but I'll never forget the speech that he gave the board that night. This young man stood up here for, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes and just nailed his speech. And I kept looking for note cards or something, and there weren't any note cards at all. And then this past school year, I got to see Robert do his presentation to the classroom, and it was the same thing. I'm sure that was part of his score, Jody, but Robert gave I don't know, it was timed perfectly, whatever it was supposed to be, 18 minutes or whatever, presentation to his class. There was not one like I'm going to say this. There was no ahs or stuttering. There was no slang. You were referencing graphs that I had asked you about afterwards, and you said you put together the entire PowerPoint presentation. And I had these guys like doing filing. So I massively underestimated your guys' skill set, and I think you should come back this summer for at least 20 hours and let me get something out of you first. But in addition to that, I want to compliment, I'm sure there's many of you, I know Aditya, you're a superstar tennis player too, aren't you? Or didn't you, what? Were you all state or something crazy? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, they're home run hitters in the classroom. They're athletes. They're doing work in the community, in internship programs and community service hours. You guys are amazing. So thank you for all the great work you do.
Anybody else for the board? Mr. Cook?
Just real quickly, we get asked quite often about Novi and why Novi. Some people want to broadcast Novi, and one of the first things that usually comes to our mind is DECA. We've got this outstanding business club of students that go out and compete in the state, nationally, and internationally. And it's people go, well, how many kids you get? 10 or 15? It's no, we have 150, and everybody just drops their chin to the ground. So it's one of Novi's points of pride is the DECA club and what you guys are able to accomplish, and we appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Well, I will just say you do represent us as a community. I hope that you do that beyond Novi when you go, because many of you are probably graduating and you're going to be out there. And I pray that the transition that you make to colleges or wherever you're going next is just an easy one, and that you will always remember this as your home. And also just that the lessons that you learned here, that you'll carry them beyond, and always remember, once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat, right? So thank you so much for being here tonight, for the work that you've done through school, representing us and DECA. I know maybe not always do you think, oh, you're representing us, but you are, and part of the reason we sit here doing what we do is because we want you guys to exceed our expectations and excel beyond your wildest imagining. So we thank you for sharing your moments with us. I loved the picture. I think it's still on the webpage of the winners, and the joy and exuberance of that. It's an awesome picture. Don't ever feel embarrassed about that picture, because that is truly what we want for every student, to feel that about something. So thank you for sharing that moment with us, even if it's just in a snapshot. And thanks again for being here. We're going to do comments from the audience, then we'll take a brief break, because I'm guessing that some of you might need to get... Oh, we have a district technology plan first.
Do a break before that.
Okay. You know what? We will, because unless you guys want to stick around for the district technology plan. Seeing no one shake their head yes. We'll take a brief break. It is right now at 7:29. We'll come back at 7:35, and then you guys can go and do the rest of your homework or go play tennis or whatever you're going to do. Okay? Thank you again. downstairs. Okay, and we are back after a brief break at the May 3rd regular meeting of the Novi Board of Education. We are ready for our second report to the board this evening. Dr. Weber.
Certainly. Thank you very much, President Murphy. Board policy number 7540, technology, states that the superintendent shall develop for approval by the board and implement a written district technology plan, or DTP. One of the primary purposes of this DTP is to evaluate new and emerging technologies and how they will play a role in student achievement and success and/or efficient and effective district operations. The board will financially support, as the budget permits, the DTP, including recommendations to provide new and developing technology for students and staff. I am exceptionally pleased to introduce three people that I share a play date with every month. So in my office, the four of us get together for about an hour or so, and we play. We take a look at existing tech, we look at future tech, we have conversations about what's coming, what's there, about education, about leadership, and so on. And it's my sincere pleasure to introduce now, if you guys want to come to the podium, all three together, so we can do this introduction. People can put a name to the face. So Wanda Ciancio. Wanda's been with us for at least a couple of years, and an absolute 30, and an absolute pleasure to work with. Jeff Mosters. Jeff, we can't see it on the podium. We've got to see it. Sorry. Oakland Schools, and Gianna Mrazek from Oakland Schools as well. And the three will be taking us through our district tech plan. Welcome.
Yes, we will.
All right.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for having us here this evening to provide an update for you. I'd also like to thank the community and the Board of Education for supporting technology in the district. For without the community support of passing bonds and the board passing the bid packs that I've brought to you over the years, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you very much for having us this evening. I want to provide a little bit of history for you of what's happened since the bond began in 2014. In May of 2014, the community passed a bond for a little over $70 million. Of that $70 million, $14 million was dedicated to technology. So after the bond was passed, we began with a program of service to develop and determine the scope of work that we would be upgrading the existing technology and security systems. Since the time of the bond passing, we have spent about $10 million of the dollars that were awarded to us. And we have about $4 million left that is earmarked for device refresh and networking infrastructure. In this bond, we've been focused on our students first and foremost. For us, supporting instruction and learning is the first priority. And we strive to provide quality, quantity, and diversity in our devices that we're meeting the needs of all students. For student learning, needs always should be driving the technology purchases, and we've really focused on that this time to make sure that we had everything everyone needed to use their devices in their classrooms. Preparing the way. We began the bond project with our infrastructure. You always have to begin with the infrastructure, because if you don't have the infrastructure, you can't support the devices that will be coming on board after. So when we began, we updated the network equipment, and then that included the wireless network as well. And when we were designing the wireless network, I said to our consultant, we really need to make sure that we can provide 3 connections for 3 devices for everyone that walks in the door at Novi Schools. And they did an amazing job with that. So since we installed the upgrades to the wireless network, we've had no issues at all with connection, none. We test all of the kids, at the middle school. They've done testing in 3 days, what took them 3 or 4 weeks before, all on wireless devices, at the high school as well and the other buildings. So we're really proud of the infrastructure that we built to support our devices here. You can see on the slide it says, I wanted to tell you how many devices we have, because we came before you before and talked about, do we want to do one-to-one, or do we want to just have a shared model here in the district for the devices? And we decided to go with the shared model after talking with staff and asking them, what do you need in your classroom to be successful with technology? What are the things you're doing, and what are the things you need to be successful. And so we went with the shared cart model, where we brought Chromebooks and iPads in, and we did it by population in the building. So student population, so there's equity in every building for the devices. We have over about 4,500 Chromebooks. We have 2,000 iPads. Some of those iPads were built prior to, or purchased prior to 2014. Actually, you saw in the technology plan we gave you that some were purchased in 2011. That's really amazing, because when we purchased them, we thought it might be 4 years of life, because they were brand new at the time, and we had no idea. Apple said they'll probably last 4 years. We got 7 years out of some of those iPads, which is amazing. We have 100 Macs in the district that we're supporting programs at the high school and middle school, broadcasting classes, graphic arts, the news program at the high school with Rachel Mercer. Also, we have 560 lab computers. Those are desktop computers like this that are sitting in the labs and being used all the time. We're in the process of thinking about how we're going to refresh those or not. We've been meeting all year, Dr. Weber, Gianna, Maz, and myself. We've been meeting with the media specialists and the staff in the buildings to talk to them about how would you like to see your media center in the future. Would you like to see, instead of having those desktop computers, would you like to see a cart and maybe be thinking about the mobility, bringing in the mobility that we've introduced in other buildings? So we're still trying to determine that. We're hoping that we're going to replenish those next summer. The current staff device availability is about 800. So if you add all that up, you can see we have 7,160 devices in this district. That includes desktops, iPads, Chromebooks that are available for student use. And the last time I looked, the enrollment's about 6,400. So we're really a little bit better than one-to-one with the devices that we have in the district. This is a list of the completed projects that have been completed in the bond since 2014. I'm not going to read them all for you. I've been before you with most of them, asking for your approval and you providing that stamp of approval for us to move forward. But we're nearing the end of the bond. We have a couple more years, and we do have a few more projects to bring before you. Most of it, a lot of it, will be in device refresh. I'm going to let Mr. Maz take over now, and then Gianna will be joining you as well.
Before you step down,
Sure.
are there questions that anyone has about what Wanda's already kind of presented? Anything?
Be happy to answer anything after, too. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. As part of the board policy, we're required to have a governance committee for technology. Over the last several years, this has really been an evolution for technology as we evolve into more of an instructional role versus an operational role. It's important to see this shift because also at the state level, the changes for technology planning have changed. So instead of having traditional technology plans where we had binders of stuff we were buying, now technology plans at the state level are included in our school improvement plans. And that's an integrated part of who we are and what we do to support student learning. So while we have board policy that says we have technology planning, much of our work is through the Office of Instruction, the Office of Operations. We work behind the scenes with a lot of different areas, much differently than we did 20 years ago when I started in education. It's very easy to do 5 computers per classroom. We didn't have to worry about wireless. We didn't worry about the curriculum integration as much. It was more about getting the stuff in there and starting to use it. Now we're much more about what are you doing with the equipment to support student learning, and then let's take a look at all of our options to best match that. So the governance committee is made up of the assistant superintendent of academics, myself, the senior technology coordinator, instructional technology integrator, and the assistant to the superintendent of academics. That's your core governance committee. And then ad hoc members, as we have questions or are involved in different programs, include teachers, students, special services, and operations. So there are committees such as the security committee, where we sit on, we listen to what's happening and listen to what their needs are, and then we bring the technology solutions to help match them. We work with the Office of Human Resources as they're looking at new employees and onboarding, and how do we deal with badging and try to help them come up with viable solutions. We work with the operations department as they're looking at new initiatives for either lighting controls or energy management systems and try to build those necessary support services. So it's not a standalone functioning committee. While we have the guidance, we work really closely with all of the different avenues and agencies in the organization. As we talked about safety and security, this has been an evolution in the last several years. We talk about physical security, and we've done a great investment in Novi to talk about physical security. Video surveillance, security offices, card access into all of our buildings, but we're also looking at digital and cybersecurity. So one of the benefits of being part of the field service partnership with Oakland Schools is we have security engineers and security team working behind the scenes to take a look at our cybersecurity. We've done security audits and looked for vulnerabilities. We're one of the first ISDs in the state to really take a look at having an audit and looking for our vulnerabilities before somebody finds them for us. So we've used that to uncover some opportunities around password management, two-factor authentications, things that are coming in the industry now are filtering into education as well. And we're trying to be as proactive as possible before somebody finds those weaknesses for us. As I said, while the state doesn't require a specific technology plan anymore, our board policy does, and we've presented that with you. But it's important to look at the shift in this technology plan, as I said, from an operational plan to really an instructional plan. As we look at the DECA students and all of our wonderful students, Frog Force, that competed at the state robotics competition, we're looking at how can we support these agencies, these organizations, and the instruction, and provide the right tools. The technology tools are evolving faster and faster, and we have to be flexible and adaptable to provide the right tools for the right needs. As we look at this, one of the key components is really our instructional initiatives. Gianna is our full-time technology integration specialist, and she works daily with teachers across the district to meld instruction and student learning and technology. And we're going to let her highlight some of the initiatives, because I think this is where the meat and potatoes of technology is in 2018. So Gianna?
Good evening. So I work with teachers, administrators, and students in grades K through 12 across the district, helping them to integrate technology in a purposeful way to support instruction. So if you see the slide, if you can see that slide, there's a picture there. And can you see it? Yes. Okay. So I just would like to talk a little bit and share what this picture is about. So this is a recent initiative that happened in all throughout all the fourth grade classrooms throughout the district. So this was an integration of technology through art. So what the students did in this particular case is that they took Starry Night as a starting point, and then they added their own personal touches. So in this particular case, the student added a silhouette of a basketball player because they connected personally with that. And then behind this layer, we added circuitry. So the students created circuits, and we talked about electricity and switches and positive and negative and how these things work. And they were able to light up their own art. So it was a phenomenal, phenomenal experience across the district, and I'm so fortunate to have had the opportunity to take part in that. From here, I'd just like to share a little bit more about some of these wonderful experiences happening throughout the district. So up in the upper right-hand corner, we have making iMovie book reviews. This is in the lower elementary grade, so this is a way that they were able to talk about their own learning experience and share what they were learning in a really creative way, have a lot of voice and choice in what they were doing. The next one down is a video, which I'll share with you quickly. But this is another book review, but a way that they were able to do it creatively and have a lot of choice in how they chose to present their ideas and what they had learned. They used green screen technology too. This little boy did a report on lions, so he was able to sit on a lion while he shared that information. In the middle, we have an example of students who are able to use video conferencing technology, in this case Google Hangouts, to talk with experts at Henry Ford about some things that they had been studying. There are also other classes that were able to video conference with other classrooms across the state, across the country, and talk about their learning experiences and share with one another. In the upper left-hand corner is another student who was working with circuitry. This is a 4th grader who had gone ahead and he wanted to do more. So what he created here is a simple circuit, a parallel circuit with a light on the top, and he actually folded this paper to make a cone to give to a 3rd grader who had made a lighthouse out of clay so they could light up their lighthouses. So they were really excited to share that. And then at the bottom in the lower left-hand corner is just an example of coding. So that's something else that's happening across the district from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, is that students are able to code. They're coding video games, they're coding programs, and they're really taking ownership of their learning. So that's something really wonderful. I'd like to just share a quick snippet of this student's book report on the lion, just so you can kind of really get a taste of this particular project. Let's see, is this a PowerPoint? Oh, maybe I can't share it.
Lions are amazing and interesting to learn about. Lions are the heaviest cats in the big cat group. Male lion has a name, but a female does not. Male lions weigh about 400.
So as you can see, this is just another way to do a book report, but it offers a lot more creativity, a lot more student control. What I found really interesting is that last week, working with a kindergarten class, I was showing the kids pictures of which picture would you like in the background, and they were able to tell me, that's not a falcon, that's a hawk, and my report was on this animal, and this one is from this region, and so they really took a lot of ownership over that, and that was kindergarten or 1st grade, I think. So it was a really wonderful experience, so thank you.
Believe it.
Okay, so I'll give you back to Giacomo Stieritz.
Great.
So you can imagine, Gianna's stretched a little thin in our district with 450 educators, plus all the administration and support staff. She can't get to every classroom. We'd love to clone her about 17 times, and I'm sure Dr. Weber will address that later. As part of our support team and our partnership that we entered into in 2016 with Oakland Schools, we have on-site staff as part of our technology services with Wanda, our network administrator, our tech integration specialist, our senior tech, and our building technicians. But we also have a lot of staff behind the scenes. So we manage a full-time service desk from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with about 14 staff members that cover all of our field districts, in addition to the other 28 districts for business applications and student applications. We have a network engineering team. We have cyber network engineers who are focused strictly on network security. And then we have our tech integration specialists who work collaboratively with our student learning services staff as well, as they try to build that partnership and that relationship. So when our ELA consultants come out, they work with our tech integration specialists to really try to meld that conversation around ELA or science as they're working at the county level. As we look toward the future, there's a number of things that we have to ebb and flow with, but we always have something on our plate and something on our radar for the future. We have, as Wanda said earlier, the replacement of computers and mobile versus traditional. We have mobility in the media center. We have to look at special education and students with special needs about adaptive and assistive technologies and how can we support those students to be able to better participate in the general education classrooms. We have the refreshing of the Chromebooks and iPads, looking at what technology best meets our student learning goals moving forward. There's a lot going on. What you don't see is necessarily a detailed budget, because that comes through as Jill brings together the district operational budget and then also through our bond planning process. So you see budgets in two different pieces. You see our daily operational budget as something the board submits and approves annually, and then the capital projects budgets as part of those bond issues. We do maintain and build budgets looking at 5 and 10 year plans, so we know when things are coming toward end of life, and we try to fit those into the different buckets that we work in. But that's always a rolling, continual process. While we have a good 5-year chunk looking, but we're always looking 5 and 10 years down the road as well. So that wraps up our technology plan presentation. If any of the members of the board have any questions, we'd be happy to address those.
Okay. Board members have questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Well, first, I was just kind of curious about the green screen stuff. Where, besides the middle school, do we have green screens that we can do stuff like that?
We have green screen in all of the buildings.
Oh, in all the buildings?
Absolutely. And it's really easy and fun.
Oh, that's good. And then the other one was just a comment. Thank you. From time to time, I have the opportunity to interact with some of our IT folks here in the district, and my experience with them has been fantastic. They're bright, they're experienced, and I'm glad that you've assigned your best and brightest to our district. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, thank you for supporting our district and all this. And, one of the things that we've talked about recently has been a little bit more coding for the kids. I see, just based on the picture, that the lower elementaries are getting into some Scratch and some BitBox and stuff like that. What are we doing to teach the kids keyboarding? Because as they get in the higher level and the more advanced coding, they do need keyboarding. They can't necessarily search and peck for a lot of the things we're doing. In the past, somebody has said that we're relying more on the tactile learning and being able to, manipulate things around on a screen, but those are the iPads, and that's less than a third of our technology out there.
That's something...
We'll defer to Dr. Weber a little bit, because as we look at instructional goals, we find a lot of opportunities moving forward. While keyboarding is continually important, it's that balance of, is it an instructional dedicated class where we take time out of the day, or is it an additional piece that we fit into other areas? We still have a focus on the need for keyboarding, but as we're continually moving into the touch environment, it's that fine balance of fitting it into our instructional day. And I'll defer to maybe
Sure.
Dr. Weber to
Competing
elaborate.
pressure is really, Paul, in the sense that as we look at 5 years ago and what we have happening in our media spaces, which is typically at the elementary level where you're going to have keyboarding occur. So if your son or daughter visits the media center once a week or twice a week during a rotation, what we're looking at now is that how is that time spent? Do we take that day and is it spent on primarily keyboarding? Do we integrate other pieces in it? As Wanda had pointed out, 4,500 Chromebooks in our district. Kids have an opportunity to be on keyboards, to be there. So that's really the conversations we've actually had this year with our media specialists, as well as where does that fit, how does it work, and so on. The thing that will never change is the amount of time we have with our kids to work on whatever it is we want to work on. And so those are the decisions we need to make, and what we're looking at right now are our kids getting the experience they need around keyboards from the natural piece, or is that something that we need to teach explicitly? If we say we need to teach that explicitly, then we're going to say no time-wise to things like teaching basic coding and programming to kindergartners and first graders who won't have the time to have access to our Osmos, our dot and dash, and so on. So like anything in life, it's a competing pressure situation.
I'd just like to add, Dr. Weber, that we do have a class in 7th grade that's required for students to take keyboarding. And we've been having a lot of conversation around when is the right time for the keyboarding to occur. So it's on our radar, and we're thinking about it. If you have any thoughts, we'd appreciate you sharing them with us.
Great, good information. Mrs. Stevenson.
I do have a question. I know that Orchard Hills is our Title I school. So what about those students that don't have the technology at home and they utilize it throughout the day, but they can't get that extra experience at home? What are we doing, or what are we looking at in the future to help them out? Are we able to provide them with some of our Chromebooks that we're no longer using and maybe refurbish those for them? How can we assist those? Are we doing anything for those students?
So from a title standpoint, our two title buildings are Village Oaks and Orchard Hills. And we've actually spoken about doing some beta pilots on one-to-one to see if that would work or not, and sending Chromebooks home, computers home, and so on. The critical thing, though, that Jeff talked about is that it's not about the tech. It's about the instruction and the ability for kids to construct their own knowledge. The reason the district stayed away from one-to-one is, frankly, I didn't feel that we were in a position where we really knew what to do with the technology. We don't want technology to turn into virtual worksheets. We don't want them to turn into virtual busy work. What we want is to use our devices and our pieces as things to construct new knowledge, to construct meaning, to navigate this world. So if we are going to send devices home, it would have to be with the purpose of why. What is the intent for that? What we believe is providing the opportunities in the schools when the kids are with us under direction of great and talented people like Gianna and the teachers she works with and trains to interact with that technology and actually use it here, not to be sent home with it. Wanda, Gianna, Jeff, anything you'd like to say to that?
This has come up before, and I would just say that I have asked the buildings, is there anyone in your building that has a need for technology? The only building that came back to me was the high school. One time for a student, they asked to borrow a device. I think in Novi, we think that everyone has a device, and some of the kids probably have a better device than we have here at school. But I have in the past inquired of the buildings, is there anyone that you know of in your building that needs to have something at home that they don't have access to? And all of them have said they don't know. So, except for the one case last year where they asked us to borrow one. But if anyone comes forward to us and asks us to borrow something, then we provide it for them. The one thing you have to think about when you're sending home a device is, does that student also have internet access?
I was going to say that too. And so what if they're like the free and reduced families and they don't have access to the internet and things like that? I'm just making sure that we are providing equity and access for all of our students. I mean, there are some students that are going to flourish and do well because they have those resources. And then there are some of our families that don't have that and maybe are embarrassed to ask for that. I don't know if we could do some kind of survey or some kind of, at the beginning of the year, finding out what they have available to them or what their needs are so we can address those needs and they can have the same access and accessibility that all of our students have.
And from an equity standpoint, the opportunity as well, mobile hotspots are something that the cost has come way down on as well. So folks wouldn't have to have broadband or anything like that. It's a good point, Ms. Kettle. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good thoughts. Other comments, questions?
Comment.
Mr. Mena?
No, I have a comment.
Oh.
So, Mr. Mena, thank you for noting the quality of the text that you've worked with. I know you've been doing a ton of work out in the field house with the new scoreboard, as well as really the Pixelot, getting real-time game viewing to our community. But a couple of years ago when we made this move to Oakland schools, it was different. And people wondered, why would we make this move? The service is going down. The service we used to have, we liked that. We liked the access to the people that we had. But the great thing about the metrics that we've been able to track with the service at Oakland schools is our service has improved markedly. Not only the quality of the techs and their technical ability, and Mr. Mena, you get this because of your profession. You understand this world. The quality of the techs we have in our district are fantastic, and their ability to problem solve and get after that helps. Also, what we have access to, which we didn't have access to in the past, is frankly, it was Wanda. And we had Jim Fry, who was kind of a tech integrator, that piece of it, but Wanda really carried the weight of this. Now Jeff is a thought partner, Gianna is a thought partner for her, but then she has access as well to all of Oakland schools. So one of the reasons we're seeing an improvement in service, the quality of the people that you work with, is that their hiring process is fantastic, and they bring great people in. And really, if there was one thing that I would want, it would be another Gianna. in the sense that having a K-4 tech integrator in our district and then an additional tech integrator for our 5-8 bandwidth would make a tremendous amount of sense. The paper circuitry that our fourth graders are putting together paper circuits is a testament to Gianna and her hustle around the district and working with art teachers from throughout the district. So it needs to be said, I appreciated, Willie, hearing that from you, that you've noted that, especially because of your expertise. It's something that you really get that a lot of people don't get. But the quality of people that we have supporting this infrastructure and supporting our staff is fantastic, and that's really a testament, Jeff, to you and your hiring and what you've done, and Wanda, for you moving forward, and Gianna, thank you for being a gift to the district.
Thank you very much for being here and for sharing. You're well thought out. I appreciated the references, like the technology plan that we have a policy on, which actually may be changing as we change our policy, I don't know. But really how that's morphed, because technology has changed so drastically since that was in place. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind, too, as we move forward, that it's more a function of our instructional piece as opposed to kind of an ancillary thing that it used to be. So I appreciate that. And thank you for being here and for presenting for us. We appreciate hearing about the great things that are happening in the videos and the 10-page report by a first grader, which was fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to our first comments from the audience. This is the first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items only. This will be a time that anybody in the audience can approach the board if they fill out a green card and hand it to Mrs. Holly in the back. The board will not necessarily be responding to your comments, but may direct the administration to get back with you at a later date. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to approach the podium and speak to the board at this point in time? No, seeing none. We will move on to our consent items. These are items that don't need further discussion, so I would entertain a motion. Mr. Mena.
I move that the board accept consent items A and B as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. These do not need discussion unless there's a question about these that a board member might have. For you, Tom, field trips, if they've been taken before, we really only have one reading. If they're new field trips, we usually have two. So both of these field trips are something that they've done something, maybe not to Panama, but they've done a Spanish language immersion trip.
Ecuador last year.
Pardon?
Ecuador this year.
Ecuador, exactly. So next year, Panama. Or no, 2018. Yeah, next year. So all those in favor, I will call the question of approving the consent items as presented. Please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our personnel report. Dr. Weber.
Yes, it's my pleasure to turn to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. This evening we have 4 recommendations. First, a new hire, Lori Kravick, Secretary at Village Oaks Elementary School. 1 retirement, Lisa Reeves, middle school science teacher, and 2 resignations. William Roos, our public relations specialist, as well as Risa Seidman, middle school social studies teacher.
It's not on here.
We actually only have Mr. Roos' resignation on our report. We do not have the second person.
I apologize for the mistake, but we also have Risa Seidman, who is a social studies teacher at the middle school.
Okay. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Mena.
I move that the board adopt the personnel recommendation as modified.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Mena and supported by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion or comments about the revised report? All right, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the personnel report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. The motion carries 6-0. Next, we have several items for information and discussion. I will turn to Dr. Weber for our first item on Chartwell's contract.
Certainly, and it's my pleasure to turn to Ms. Minnick. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Chartwell's Dining Services has been the district's food service provider since the 16-17 school year, providing breakfast and lunch service, as well as catering services to the district and other local events. Tonight, we welcome Yvonne Gazzarato, our Food and Nutrition Director with Chartwell's for the Novi Community School District, who will provide an annual update on our food service operations, and she is joined by Ann Smith, our Regional Director.
Thank you, Jill. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to go over our kind of a year in review, everything that we've been doing in the food service department within all the schools across the district. I'll go over the operations, a little bit of a financial review, and then I love speaking through pictures because that's more powerful than words. So I have a little presentation in that respect. Up here you can see, which you've probably seen before over the years, we always have our promotional calendar that we follow throughout the year, which breaks down into every month different fruits and vegetables that we highlight, or different grains, those types of things, different like menu items we feature. We always follow along with that, and then I always add our own twist into it and focus on different things. You can see here these are actually just from April, these pictures. We have our pinwheels for prevention we did across the district. Especially in the elementary schools, students were able to donate $1, which got a pinwheel, and then on April 25th we put them out in front of all the schools, and it was to show support for students in abusive situations, and then all the donations support the Care House of Oakland County. This year we did some updating to the high school and middle school marketing. We put in our balanced kitchen, which was all new signs and POS stations at all the different food outlets. We added through the bond a turbo chef at the high school at the deli station, which is kind of like when you go to Subway and they say, do you want it toasted? That's the same thing. So students there can now get their sandwiches toasted, and they love it. It's a very busy station. And right here, the picture you see is our Wild Greens, which is another very popular addition to the high school. Students can have their own salad assembled, made to order, and it's a very fresh, wonderful option. There's great vegetarian and vegan options, such as tofu, for the students as well. Finances this year, we have been really doing a wonderful job. The schools, I couldn't be more proud of all of the staff and the just passion that they show for really giving the kids what they like and really leaning them towards the healthy choices. So you can see our year-to-date daily revenue is up remarkably over last year, so we're pretty steadily over $12,000. And then meals, again, we are up. We've been up every month, just about. And April, again, I was just reviewing those numbers today, and that's up significantly as well. We're also on track to probably beat our financial guarantee for this year.
Wonderful.
And then here's just a compilation of some fun things we've been doing.
Ewell, can you mention maybe a few of the things that we're seeing in the pictures?
One of my favorite events, which you can see right here, we do a farmer's market. The pictures are actually from the 5th grade. So we bring in the fall, a ton of local fruits and vegetables and give the students play money that they can purchase the vegetables and fruits and actually take them home. And we supply recipes that they can, use the fruits and vegetables that they purchase to make things at home. We have mini heart-shaped pizzas, which was a Valentine's Day promotion at the high school and middle school. So they were hand-shaped, individual heart-shaped pizzas, homemade. And then there's some catering pictures in there because we love being able to service not only the students but all the staff in the district. We had pizza sampling when we were able to bring in the new white dough pizza, which was very exciting for many of the students. Since we got a little bit of a reprieve from the USDA. Again, there's some more of the pinwheels pictures. Novi Woods, I have to say, really knocked it out of the park. We brought it did about $200, so we sold about 200 pinwheels there, so they had a lot of fun. All the students were able to put them out.
Great.
Thank you again for having me here. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Cook?
I just want to say thanks. This year you teamed up with an app, NutriSlice, so we can see our menus on our phones and stuff like that. Really appreciate that. It makes it a little easier in the night before planning for our kids to go to school, whether they want to buy a lunch or take it. So
yeah, it's a wonderful tool. And also, if some of you also don't know, you can filter allergens on that as well. So students with allergy concerns, they can toggle a nut allergy or gluten, whatever it is, and it'll show them what menu items they can eat. It's also good for our diabetic students because they can easily see their carbs and sugars that they're taking in and are able to control their insulin better.
So, Paul, can you describe that in the App Store then?
Yes, you can find it in the App Store. It's under NutriSlice.
Okay. Thank you.
Then just sign up and you choose Novi Schools. You can pick a favorite school you have, whether it's Parkview or Meadows or Deerfield or whatever. It will show you the menu for each day, and you can filter it down from there.
I didn't know anything about that, so thanks
Thank
for
you.
bringing that up.
And the rise in diabetic students and families, that sounds fantastic.
Yes, all the secretaries and of course our nurse Kathy Ferris, we work very closely with them and they're aware of it and use it very much.
That's wonderful.
Maybe it's something we should send out on listserv so
Yeah.
others can find out about
Wrote it
that.
down.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean they're not all watching tonight?
Good, probably.
I'll do that.
Okay, yeah, good to know, and thank you for the presentation. Are there other questions for Yvonne? I'm thrilled to hear that that you're moving in the right direction. Obviously, some of the changes that you've made have had an impact too on the sales, which is fantastic. This is something that we need to approve, so I'm going to turn to you, Jill, to what are the next steps with this?
Well, secondarily, this evening, I have for you for information a renewal of the food service contract. Just to refresh everyone's memory, back in 2016, Chartwell's was approved to serve as the district's food service management company. The district has the option to renew the contract annually up to 4 times. It requires annual approval by the Board of Education, however, each of those years. The district renewed the contract for 17-18, and this renewal for 18-19 being proposed would be the second of those 4 renewals allowed. District administration has been extremely satisfied with the work performed by Chartwell's, and especially by Eval. Eval brings a lot of efforts to our district to provide distinct menus for varieties of students. In other words, she utilizes the NutriSlice, she loads all of our menus into the NutriSlice application so that parents can see every day the nutritional breakdown of those menu options, vegetarian, gluten-free, allergens, you name it. So she goes to great lengths to try to provide meals and breakfasts and lunches that will appeal to our diverse community. The Michigan Department of Ed is required to approve the renewal before being presented to the Board of Education, and we received that approval from MDE on April 9th. Chartwell's and the district administration have agreed to a $300,754 financial guarantee for the 18-19 school year. The food service management company renewal is being presented tonight for information and will be recommended for approval at the May 17 board meeting.
Additional questions?
Just a comment. If I may, Eval Gazzarato has been a huge asset to our district in ways that many people don't see, but Eval has stepped up and been a member of our Feed the Need outreach in this community and food security and dealing with food insecurity for the past 3 years. She and her staff have stepped up and helped us through the summer in combination with Rotary, Kroger, National Food Group, and so many good people to feed kids in this community who normally wouldn't get fed over the summertime. Eval lives on the east side of the city, of what I call the city of our area. It's a good drive for her, and she stays after late into the night to make sure these things happen for us. These aren't things you see in a presentation like this or so on, but I thank you so much for that and your commitment to all of our kids. And it's also been a joy seeing you and Jill build your relationship and see those numbers go up. From a bar graph type of person, I know a big smile on your face, Jill. They're bigger than last year's, so that's a good thing.
That's right.
So thank you.
It's always good to do financially well.
Yes.
and
All
being
right.
sure that we're serving those meals to students.
Right, absolutely. Nutrition is a huge key to education.
Absolutely.
We all know that. So this is something that will come back on our agenda at the next meeting. If you do have questions that you think about when on your drive home or later on, please get them to Jill so that she can maybe ask a bowl or answer them herself. So if there are questions about that renewal agreement or anything like that after you read it over, please get those to Jill.
May I add one more clarification comment?
Certainly.
And that is that we do not get to negotiate this contract. Michigan Department of Education requires the percentage increase each year.
Oh, did I say we were negotiating? Okay.
No, I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify that.
Okay, terrific. So this will come back for our approval at the next meeting, or our vote at the next meeting. Next, we have the Oakland Schools budget. Dr. Weber.
Thank you very much, President Murphy. And I will go over to Ms. Minnick on this one as well. I will note that at the bottom of this, 2 resolutions are attached, one supporting the ISD budget and one disapproving it. They are presented to the board tonight for information and discussion with adoption of one at the May 17, 2018 regular meeting. So Ms. Minnick, if you could please take us through this.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Weber. Before you is the Oakland Schools Intermediate School District budget up for approval for the 18-19 school year. Per the Michigan Revised School Code, Section 380.6242, subsection 2, the Oakland Schools annual budget must be presented to Oakland County's 28 school districts by May 1 of each school year. The district has now received 3 sets of the fiscal year proposed budget documents from Oakland Schools, a copy for the superintendent, for the business manager, and for our board treasurer, Paul Cook. Per that section of the code, the following actions are required by the district for compliance. Number 1, review the intermediate school district's general education fund operating budget. Number 2, not later than June 1st, adopt a board resolution expressing support for or disapproval of the proposed budget. And finally, to submit to the ISD's Board of Education any specific objections and proposed changes to that budget. Per that same section, only the general operating fund budget requires a board resolution. However, the ISD has provided all of their draft budgets, including special education, career-focused education, special revenue cooperative activities, debt service, capital projects, enterprise and internal service, and grant funds budgets. While not a statutory requirement, the Oakland Schools Board of Education held a designates meeting on Wednesday, April 25th at 6 o'clock at Oakland Schools, providing local board designates and district administrators an opportunity to hear a presentation on their budget and ask questions prior to finalizing this board resolution. As Dr. Weber mentioned, 2 resolutions have been provided, one in support of and one disapproving the proposed budget. They are presented tonight for information and will come back for adoption of one of those resolutions at the May 17 meeting.
All right. Thank you. I know there was a lot of information to read through there.
Right.
Mr. Cook had the joy of reading. Do you have any comments that you would like to make about the budget?
Well, this is, as usual, this is kind of a, it doesn't matter if we vote it up or vote it down, they're going ahead with it anyways. But I did like what I saw, where they're spending down to get within their fund, what they want to hold for a fund allowance, and that they will reach that next year. They won't be there yet this year, but so they're not overspending, and they will maintain that for the foreseeable future based off of their projections. It's quite detailed in there, and it was some interesting reading. So if anybody else would like to take an in-depth view of it, I have it here. So.
May I add to your comment? Oakland Schools hosted a budget meeting for business managers throughout the county, which I attended for that same presentation that you saw. And that is a planned use of some of their fund balance in order to better allocate the resources that they have.
Good to know, because I know in the past that has been something that's been brought up before. So.
Yep.
So this will also come back to us next week. If you do have questions or have a desire to read this, I'm sure Mr. Cook would part with it temporarily. But certainly if there's anything else that you want us to know, beforehand, or questions that we have, we can get them to Jill, to Paul. He might also be able to address them from his reading. All right, so without further ado, we will move on to C, which is our Stormwater Board Resolution Permit Renewal. Exciting stuff.
Say that 3
Dr.
times
Weber.
really quickly, and then say Michigan Department of Environmental Quality 3 times quickly. So the Miss Minnick show continues, her 3rd agenda item in this point, and this is the Stormwater I'm not going to say it. Go ahead, Jill. Got it. Go.
Thank you.
Yep.
And there's some lengthy background on this one as well. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality requires Novi Community School District and other school districts across the state to obtain permits to discharge water through the municipal storm sewer system to waters of the state of Michigan. And we must also have a stormwater management plan for the purpose of protecting the water quality of the state by reducing the discharge of pollutants from drainage systems. Our district created a stormwater management plan, which was submitted and approved by Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. And our plan requires that we adopt a board resolution addressing post-construction storm water control. Back in 2009, the board adopted the policy 7470, post-construction stormwater control, in order to secure a stormwater control permit. The district applied for the renewal of that permit, and now we must meet the requirements of that permit application, which is to have the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopt a stormwater board resolution. This comes before the board tonight as information and discussion, and it will come back before the board at the next regular meeting, May 17th, for action.
Exciting stuff. Someone else have questions or comments about the proposed stormwater board resolution permit application renewal? It's kind of a cursory thing we must do.
It is, yes.
In order to fulfill the requirements of the DEQ, I assume.
Yes.
So, no real questions. I didn't really anticipate any, but this will come back to us again. So if you do have questions as you're, as you're reviewing this again or whatever, please get those to Jill so that we can get those answered before the next board meeting when it will come back for discussion. All right. Or, excuse me.
I do
Go
want to
back for a
ask a
vote.
question.
Okay, ask a question about that, Mr. Cook.
I know we do have some retention ponds and stuff that, for runoff and the likes, we've got some wetland areas around a lot of our schools and stuff like that. Do we actively monitor the water quality that ends up in there? Or
Absolutely. We work with a group called Arch Environmental, and they are civil engineers that work with our maintenance and operations department frequently. And you often might see them around our district. They come out in their white hard hats and their white lab coats, and they are actively looking at some of the stormwater management systems that we have on our properties.
Do we, are we actively trying to reduce some of the runoff that we see into those systems, or are we just saying, okay, this is...
I'm sorry. We do strive to minimize that, but of course when you have construction you may have some runoff, and when we do, we absolutely abide by the Department of Environmental Quality's rules so that we are in compliance. Arch Environmental assists us in those endeavors.
Good questions. Okay, we will move on to our next item for discussion. This is the report on the Bosco property.
Thank you very much, President Murphy. The regular meeting of the board on April 19th, 2018, the board engaged in discussion around the City of Novi's interest in leasing the property 11 Mile and Beck, commonly called the Bosco property, from the district for the purpose of developing recreational fields. This discussion continues this evening. I know President Murphy, I believe there has been maybe some community questions or concerns brought up around this?
Yes, well, first I'm going to, because, obviously Mr. Smith is new to the board since we first began this discussion. This discussion really began back right when Jill came on board, so
even
a little bit maybe before that.
A year maybe before
Yeah.
that.
Well, 2017 I think is the first that we kind of had initial discussions, and then, or I take that back. You would probably know better than I when we first, this year, it was about 2017. I tried to look back to see some of that information. So if you could kind of review kind of where we were at then. We've done an assessment. We've done some assessments and some of those things in the meantime in order to kind of have a little more information about what is in the best interest of the district. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of where we were historically, as
Sure.
best that you can.
At the time that I came in, there was a draft proposed lease agreement between the city and the school district, whereby the city wanted to propose to use our property that we own at the southwest intersection of Beck and 11 Mile for the purposes of building recreational fields and those types of facilities. At the time, there were some questions. The lease was going back and forth between the two parties, looking for clarification on timeframes, how it would work when the district might want that property back for our own use. So my understanding, I've not been intimately involved, but my understanding is the lease agreement has gone back and forth between the two parties for refinement. I don't know if all of the board members' questions have been addressed or not, but I imagine that we have taken action to do so.
Yeah, based on the discussions that we've had, there have been some back and forth and some changes made. I know we did get today, all got an email, I'm assuming everybody got the email, from a community member with some concerns that were also included. But I'll just open it up to the board now for a general discussion. If there's additional things, we've gotten a contract back from the city based on feedback from our last meeting. So this is kind of a discussion of whether or not that is something we want to move forward with, if there are still things in that we want to hang on to. I know there were some deletions made, where the board is at with that. So I would open it up for discussion at this point. Mr. Mena.
I think some of one of the concerns that we got in was regarding our abilities to be able to sell the property if and when we want to do that. I still find that discussion a little bit silly because it's the only piece of property that we have that we can build on if this community at some point needs to build an elementary school. We've had that property for, I don't know, going on 13, 14, 15 years. I can't remember exactly. And it's been a nice asset for the school district, but our community's never been able to use it. And now we have an opportunity here to let the city build some greenfields for our kids to be able to use that property. I think we paid $8.5 million for that property, and that doesn't even include the interest that we paid on that, which probably is another $4 million, I'm guessing, maybe more.
I don't know. I could try to find out for you.
And that property is currently zoned RA, which means that if a developer wants to buy that property, those are 1 acre parcels. Okay, well, a developer doesn't want property right now where they can only build 1 acre parcels. They're going to want to have that rezoned to R4, which will allow them to put more property on that parcel of land. Problem is, we have a community right now who feels that we're overbuilding, especially along Beck Road where we have a ton of traffic right now. I just don't see any reason that we want to sell that property to a developer. I don't see any reason why certainly there would be any push from community members to do that. We have property right now that could be used for a school if we need it, and we have property now that the city's willing to invest in, so that our kids could use it for recreational purposes. I think it's a win-win. I think it's a good agreement. I think it's a great partnership with the city, and I certainly will be supporting this agreement when it comes before us next week.
All right. Other board members, having had the opportunity to read through the agreement as it's been changed? Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I did read through it, and the only thing I had two things. The right of first refusal. I don't know that that's ever really a good thing for any organization to put on a valuable asset. Right of first refusal to give someone else that kind of leverage over something that you own. I'm not necessarily, I would still support it, but I just don't know how that brings any benefit to the district, allowing the city to have right of first refusal.
If I can, the whole purpose of the right of first refusal, from my understanding, is the city's making a pretty big investment. So I think all they're saying is, hey, if you're going to sell the property, we want to have an opportunity to purchase it and not lose the investment that we've made for our kids. And that's really as simple as it is, from my understanding. So instead of selling it to a developer, they'd like to have the ability to purchase it, and they may decide they don't want to because it could end up being that property isn't being used by recreation as much as they had anticipated, but you know, I don't really see a big problem with it. Again, I'm not a big proponent of selling that property to a developer when, you know, some of the concerns that I've heard from people is, you know, do we really want to allow the city to put green space out on that property? What if for some reason we need to build an elementary school? Well, if we're ever considering building an elementary school, why would we ever consider selling the property to a developer? So that proposal, that part of the contract really to me is a moot point, because I don't think we should ever sell that property.
Mrs. Hood?
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just, you know, right of first refusal, you might put that on a school bus, but not an $8 million asset. And whether it's really worth $8 million or not remains to be seen. But I don't know. I'll have to think through that a little bit more. And
from my understanding of what I read, I guess I'd agree with Mr. Mena's point that if I was going to undertake the investment that the city's willing to do, I would want some assurance that it would not be in vain, which is also why I think it makes sense that the city would ask for a notice no earlier than December 31st of 2020 for the school board to say, hey, we want the land back. I think it's the same point. Well, if I knew you were going to ask for the land back after 12 or 24 months, I never would have built this stuff. So I think that makes sense. I think some of the comments about the development was more about raising more money for the district with regards to if more houses are built, there's a potential to have more kids, but that may be a false presumption in that it's going to be a homes for children versus another senior community or something like that. So I think that was perhaps an erred premise.
And I'll bring up a point that's kind of along those same lines that has me thinking, because obviously taxpayer money bought the land to begin with, and then the city would purchase the land from us with taxpayer money. That the optics of that for us is a little like we would need it to pay back. You know, we can't use it for operational funds. We use it to pay back, and I guess then I guess so. So we'd use the money to pay back the debt to lower the taxes. So okay, I'm now that picture's being fleshed out a little bit. It just feels a little weird that you would buy a land with taxpayer money and then you again buy it again with taxpayer money, the same land. Does anybody else kind of?
I want to see the land developed also. I from my understanding and reading, I would support it as well. You know, the Nova Educational Foundation is the proud owner of 2 big green storage containers that sit out on the property right now. And it would be nice if it was developed, if we could get a little bit more publicity out of the senior-only party storage containers.
Are we able to leave those there according to our current lease?
That'd be the only provision I'd want to entertain. Is maybe it could be a caveat that the NEF gets to keep its storage containers somewhere on that property, because currently they're sitting out on some dirt and mud, and it's not that attractive.
Yeah.
Your predecessor said that, there's lots of spaces that those could land, but that's perhaps a different conversation.
Well, no, in addition to your comment, the draft edition of the lease indicates that we're not currently using the property, and we are, both with those storage
Correct.
containers, but we also own 2 storage pole barn type buildings that we actively use. We store equipment out there, whatnot, so we are currently using it, and my understanding is that the exhibits that are attached in terms of a rendering of the area they would use to develop, I don't believe those are in final form. But without a final edition of those plans, it's hard to tell if we would be able to maintain access to our buildings on that property. I'd want to work to make sure we did have access.
Okay, so maybe that's one of the things we need to make sure that what we have before we sign it is an accurate rendering that shows whether or not we'll have access to the barns.
From my reading of the lease, it does appear that maintenance buildings will still be allowed and are actually excluded from the clause where it said that they weren't going to build any concrete foundations. but they are going to construct a parking lot, so there's going to be some type of asphalt somewhere on that property. All I'm asking for is if we could reserve a space to continue to store those, those storage containers there, that would be appreciated.
Okay. So that's a slight change that maybe we need to make sure that's built into.
So I'll send you an email on that.
Because that does make sense, especially if we've got a pole barn or a barns that we're going to need access to, and what that would look like, just to make sure that we maintain that. I think that's probably important.
You just constructed one last year
Right.
over there. And I had asked that question if we were maintaining access to those in the past, and the answer was yes. So we would still have access to those, and I don't see why we couldn't move the storage containers a little bit closer to those and get them away from the fields that are going to be developed.
Correct.
So,
Mr. Cook?
I do have a comment really on the right of first refusal, which I didn't see in there. If the city does not exercise the right of first refusal, and we end up selling the land, I don't believe there's anything that states how long the city has, because it could be if we decide to sell it, whenever we can close on the deal, it would revert to the new owner. And for us to reclaim the land from the city, we're giving them 2 years' notice, but there is no notice if we were to sell it stated in there.
Oh, Ms. Minnick?
It is itemized in the draft that they would have 2 additional years to use the land.
So even if we were to sell it, they would still have 2 additional years to use the land?
That's correct.
Okay, I must have missed that, but yeah, okay.
Which could hinder the sale.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If you want to develop the land, and you have to wait 2 years before you can.
Okay, is that something that other board members have concern about? Okay, so the one thing that I'm hearing is that we need to make sure we have access to the pole barns and that we can still leave our other things, which I think that makes sense, because those are storing some senior all-night party stuff, right?
It's my understanding that's all that's in there.
Right, and they need access to move them to the high school before the senior all-night party, and access to move them back.
Correct.
So that's really the only time that they get moved.
Correct.
My understanding. Okay, so if we could clarify that, and that would be done with the rendering of the of I think B. I think it's B. Exhibit B.
Yes.
That is the proposed rendering. So if we could get that. I did have some concerns that I expressed, and I'll just state them just really quickly. Just that, I understand that we have. It's my understanding from the city that they have a need for additional fields because they have other kids signing up, and I'm certainly in favor of the land being used for the citizens of this community. It's been there and empty. I guess part of my concern is that while we enjoy this really a good relationship now, not all of us will be here in 2023 or beyond, and neither will maybe some people from the city. So what happens if that relationship isn't as good as it is? Are we still is everybody still really comfortable with the way this is laid out? That in the long term, even if by some chance the relationship is not a good one, that we are still protecting the asset of the district? Because I do have a few concerns along those lines.
You looking for comments?
Well,
And that's the whole idea of having a contract, right?
Yeah, I don't have
think
any
everything
concern
is
about
spelled
it.
in there?
It appears that we always have the ability to take the land back effective January 1st of 2023. So the worst case scenario, we're going out 5 years.
So does it make sense to revisit and look at, because, and I was thinking about this in light of the fact that we have, we look at our contracts on a pretty regular basis. That's just typically what we do as a district. Does it make sense that we would revisit this contract every 5 years to assess, like, where are we at with that? Do we need, so that way we can give the city that ample time? Is that something that the board would either consider adding to the contract language or somehow considering, because I think that as we constantly look at our numbers and what that means for us, it seems to me that it just might make sense to have it be something that we revisit on some kind of basis, so that we can, not that we can change the terms of the contract, but certainly it would force us to revisit the land use, whether or not we have a need for it, or are going to have a need for it. And like I said, I'm thinking beyond like us on this board that have the history. I'm thinking of those people that don't have the history. Yes?
Well, wouldn't the district include that as kind of the standard, regular assessment of facilities? I mean, it's still considered a something that...
So that's probably a question maybe for Ms. Minnick. Is that...
It's not typically part of that assessment, but we could certainly include that.
So we could build it into that.
Yeah, I don't know that it would need to be added formally into a board review, but just as part of the, because it's a good point. I like that point.
I would venture to say that would be an annual review that we would do internally, just to be sure that both parties are adhering to the clauses in the contract, to be sure that the property is maintained and in good working order, and that the snow is cleared and what have you.
All right. So the earliest we'd be able to reclaim the property would be January 1st, 2023, and we're confident, I know you've run the numbers, and you're pretty confident that we don't have a need for it before that point in time?
According to current enrollment projections.
Okay. So that was one of the questions that had come up really early on that I know that we needed to discuss. I know the first right of refusal was something that Kathy was concerned about.
May I add to that comment, though?
Sure.
That's based on enrollment and the need for school buildings. If the Board of Ed should ever desire to build any other type of facility, whether it's administrative, whether it is community ed related, what have you, those are just other ideas the board may come up with in the future.
Okay. Okay. And as far as like parking lots, do we know if they're going to pave the parking lots, or are they going to be gravel parking lots?
That was another consideration that I had when I read the draft.
Gravel parking lots? Okay. Mr. Stout's in the back of the room nodding his head. So it would be temporary, basically be able to easily removed should the board want it. Is that currently in the contract?
The draft indicates that they will build parking lots.
Okay.
But another section refers to the fact that they will not build structures that require foundations.
Okay.
But it doesn't indicate whether it's a concrete parking lot.
Okay. Is that something we might want to consider adding to the language? Possibly? I don't know. Not necessary? Okay. Okay. I'm just this is a big deal. I think it's a big deal.
Well, an extension of that thought is that I would recommend that we have some clarification language about what condition the property needs to be in when it is returned to the district. And currently it says it should be returned in the same fine shape that they receive it in. Yet does that mean that they would remove their improvements, remove parking lots, restrooms, what have you, or do those stay intact on the property? That's not defined right now.
Okay, so maybe we need just a little additional language in there for that. Is that something that the board would support, just putting a little additional language in there about that piece? Because you could work with the attorneys to come up with that, and we could get that to the city, and it would still be able to come back to us relatively quickly. Our next meeting is not until, we've got 2 weeks.
If that is the pleasure of the board, I'm happy to do that.
Is that something that the board would like to see? Just additional fleshing out
I'm really
that definition?
confused, Ms. Minnick. Haven't you been involved in the conversation with Dr. Matthews and the attorneys on this issue, or is this a last-minute concern?
No, Dr. Matthews has been leading that charge, working with the attorneys in the city.
Okay, so has your concerns been brought up to him?
I have discussed concerns even dating back to when I was initially hired. This was underway at that time.
Okay. So my assumption is that he would have considered it. He's not here tonight, though, so
right.
Hopefully we'll get some clarification from him when he gets back.
Okay. So if there are things in there that just need fleshed out in terms of definitions, maybe that's something that is a real easy fix. I did have something highlighted that I was not sure about the definition of, but I can get that to Dr. Matthews, and he may be able to just respond to that without too much difficulty. Okay, so moving forward, this will come back. If there are additional things or questions as you move that you need, I would suggest we get a decent, a more final rendering, if that's possible, because it's listed in the agreement as there would be kind of the final renderings. And I think that would be, before we sign it into action, I think that would be a wise to have that. The board in agreement with that? Okay, so I'm seeing heads nod that would be appropriate. All right, any additional comments, questions? I know it's been a long time coming. Like I said, I think it's a big deal because it is an asset that this district purchased to benefit the district, or this taxpayers purchased to benefit the district, and I know that we all take that very seriously. I also know that we all would like to see that land be used for something that would benefit our kids, so I don't think anybody's certainly not in agreement that it would be good to see that going on out there, and the use of the land. Mr. Cook?
So are we looking for more clarifications and changes to this contract, or is this going to come back to us next meeting for a vote?
Well, they eliminated all of Section 7. I don't know if you noticed that, but they didn't renumber it, so it's going to need changed anyways, but I don't know that we would necessarily need a second reading. If the changes go through and they all get approved, then we could still vote on it at the next meeting. I mean, unless there's additional discussion that board members want to have. Are you?
I'm fine.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We are to our second opportunity for comments for the audience. If there is anyone that would like to make a comment, please give the card to Mrs. Holly. This is an opportunity for members of the community to speak to the board about any item under our jurisdiction. You are welcome to approach the podium. Please identify yourself. The board will not necessarily be responding to your comments, but we may direct the administration to get back with you if that's necessary.
Great. Thank you. My name's Dave Stout. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of Novi and a 24-year resident. And we've been through this a little bit about 7 or 8 years ago when we talked about the Signature Park and had a great partnership lined up, but it was the wrong time. This is the right time for this. Fortunately, because of the taxpayers' wisdom, they gave us a millage that allows us to make the improvements on the property. Just a couple things from my perspective, and not acting on behalf of my colleagues on City Council. I'm absolutely certain we've discussed having access to anything that's there permanently, and there would be no question about that type of partnership. It is going to be a gravel parking lot because, one, the cost would be prohibitive, but two, we don't want any permanent structures there. A third thing is that the bad news is I got a text message today that the barn is going to come down next week. So on Monday, the barn's going to be taken down, and Griffin Funeral Home's moving forward with that. And I know a lot of people are going to miss that barn, but it's not part of this process at all. They're still considering what they're going to do with the house and the property. I think the house and the property has gone up for sale recently, and I'm not sure if the city's interested in buying that or not. That might be something we consider down the road. But this is great news for the residents of Novi, and I'm sure from what I've heard, there's very minor things to correct in the contract. And we're looking forward to, we were ready on Monday to allocate the funds necessary to get it going. A couple more weeks. We've been very patient. It's been a long process, and we're very excited. So we appreciate your support. Look forward to it. This is not an unprecedented situation. About 15 years ago, we were in your spot with the softball diamonds and the property behind the high school, where we went with a 50-year lease with very, very minor clawback provisions. So we respect the need of the school district to potentially claw back that property. Like like some of the previous speakers, I hope it's never developed. Trust me, we're working on new residential developments every day. We'd love to get you guys a lot more students, but that is a real jewel, and hopefully someday, long from now, you'll build another facility there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Seeing that is the only audience member coming forward, we will move on to our superintendent's report.
Yes, the acting superintendent's report. We'll keep this brief because I know Dr. Kinzer's walking tomorrow morning at 9. So just want to express my gratitude to the board, and to what we saw tonight is simply a microcosm of what a great community is, whether it's DECA, whether it's a city councilman coming in to work with us and to in partnership to help develop our community. This is a great place to be, and it's that simple. So I'm finished.
Perfect. Thank you. Next.
Sorry, you caught me by surprise. I'll be the shortest assistant superintendent.
Come on, Willie.
That was good, though. Thank you.
It was good. We move on to administrative reports. I know you've had a lot to share this evening. Is there anything additional that you'd like to share about your department?
I don't have anything additional. I think it's evident what we've been working on.
Okay, fabulous. And soon to be Dr. Kinzer officially.
I just wanted to let you know that we've begun some interviewing for teaching positions in a couple of our buildings already. And as you know, our middle school principal, Mrs. Schreiner, is retiring at the end of the year, and that position is now posted. Dr. Weber and Mrs. Minnick and I met with middle school staff today to identify some desired characteristics that they would like to see in their next principal. So we're beginning that process now as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, we have the first opportunity for board communications, an opportunity for the board to share things they have been doing, trainings, school visits, anything like that the board's been involved in. Anybody? Mrs. Hood?
I have just a little thing. So Tuesday was Novi Woods 4th grade Destination America concert and art show at the high school. And we spend a lot of time and energy talking about coding and all the technical aspects of our students' learning. But the art show, these clay creations were just so great. And what I liked about it is the art itself was great, but it was so obvious that the teachers set our kids out onto this mission to create these things, and none of them looked the same. They were all unique and different and lovely, and it was really a really nice, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's just, it was clear that the kids were using their imaginations, and the creations were wonderful. The concert was good too. So anyway, it was fun.
Very cool. And they did it at the high school, which is
At
really
the high
kind of
school
cool for them. For
Well,
those fourth graders
silly
to see.
me, I showed up at Woods and it was empty. I'm like, what did I miss? So I ran over to the high school.
Yeah, neat for them to be over there experiencing
Yes.
the big stage.
Yep.
Other board members have things that they've been involved in? I'd like to share, Mr. Matt.
Yeah, I recently traveled up to Oxford to meet up with the folks who are running the Oxford Invitational Track Meet. Oxford has a very, very nice video scoreboard, a little bit bigger than the one we bought. I got a little scoreboard envy there. Anyway, the goal really was for us to figure out how to use our board this year, as we're hosting the Oakland County Track Meet for the second year in a row, to show results and heat lineups and team scores as the event goes on. So I have made a good contact up there, and I'm hoping that we'll have that working for the event on I think it's May 26th here.
And I know they need help at that event, so if anybody wants to go out and volunteer for the track meet, they're going to need a lot of volunteers like they've had in the past. So I know I got nabbed walking into something by Mrs. Reed and said, "Could you help?" So, anyways, other board members? Stuff going on? I'll just share briefly. I've attended the Government Relations Committee at the MASB, and one thing that just keeps striking me as I'm there and we're talking about different things is we are really ahead of the curve when it comes to a lot of things in this district. Alice training came up, and it sounds like some districts know what it is, but other districts don't. Somebody thought it was just for bus drivers because they trained all their bus drivers, and So I came back and, of course, asked Dr. Matthews, did we train our bus drivers now? Of course, everybody's already been trained, he assured me. But they're doing a lot of talk about some of the House bills. They're expanding OK to Say, which I know you've really championed that, and the district is now moving in that direction to do that. The other thing, that one of the House bills is talking about adding to our curriculum that you would teach about healthy relationships and domestic abuse. That's House Bill 5575. The other ones that are around Larry Nassar's and the things that happened at Michigan State, they're talking about expanding the list of mandatory reporters, some of which will all impact our district because they're talking about adding bus drivers, coaches, and volunteers. There's still a lot to be worked out with those because as I listened to some of the testimony yesterday, and they were talking about how even if they expanded it to this, it doesn't require you to report doctors. So even though you could expand it there's other things that need addressed in order for it to take effect. But it could potentially affect our district because that would require then us to do significantly more training with many other people in our district to talk about how you report and what that means. The other couple things that came up is Senate Bill 8, I think it's 8, I can't read my own writing, 852, which was talked about closed sessions for security discussions. That's not currently a subject that you can discuss in closed session. So they're adding that to one of the things that we can actually have a conversation about, which makes sense because you don't want to have necessarily a security discussion about what you're going to do from a security standpoint in a public session. Also permanent Labor Day waivers that they're talking about putting those in place. So if at some point in time we decide to start before Labor Day, you could do it in perpetuity without having to go back and completely apply for waivers. The other really big one that's could potentially impact us is House Bill 5707, which is they're trying to modify the performance evaluation for public teachers and administrators to stay at the current 25% as opposed to going up to 40%, and in part because they recognize that there is not a good state testing at this point. So that is something for us to keep our eye on as well going forward. And I know we all got a note from Dr. Matthews today about some in the budget bill that they were going to add time to the school day. It does look like that was defeated, but we need to keep our eye out to see if somebody tries to put that in later. So it was an amendment that they were going to add 32 hours to instructional time that we would be required to give. So that would certainly require us to completely change our schedules, the way we do things in time for the next school year, which I don't think is very easily doable, and certainly not attaching any funding to it isn't very doable at all. So anyways, just some things to keep our eyes on as we're watching some of those things. And all the safety bills are moving parts. Some of us all got some information, Safer Schools, Safer Students, this initiative that several people got together, MASP, MASBA, Michigan High School Counselor Association, to really come up with some good ideas to work in conjunction with our senators to really put some things that will create safer schools and safer students. And they're trying to work with the Senate and the House on some of those initiatives as well. So any support I think we can give them in that. Obviously there's them coming up with it before our senators, and there's a little bit of I wish I would have come up with it first, right? But if we can do anything to support some of that, whether it's contacting our local senators or the representatives to let them know that our support of some of those things, it would be, I think, very much appreciated. So that is it. I know there's a lot of other things going on, but it's a little after 9, and I'm sure that we're all ready to go home. So without further ado, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Smith. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Oh, opposed? Okay. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.